Sun Devils football increased their championship window by extending their offensive and defensive coordinators today.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, what great news to wake up to today on this fine, cool Saturday morning with a huge game looming later today at 1:30 as number 21 Arizona State prepares to host number 14 BYU for what is going to be a massive game for the Big 12 standings. But who cares about that? No, before we get there, Arizona State announced this morning, Pete Thamel from ESPN reported that the university has extended both offensive coordinator Marcus Arroyo and defensive coordinator Brian Ward to 3-year deals. This is a big deal. This is a very, very big deal. And it's something that should really get fans excited. And that's what we're here to talk about very briefly today on this tight edition of Locked On Sun Devils. And let's start with why this is a big deal for now. It's very simple. This is going to increase the continuity that you have moving forward. And it's going to get guys who are already on this team bought in even more. Right now, ASU is projected to return 35 of 44 players on their two deep. That's nuts. With the way that ASU is playing this year, that means that your expectations and your title hopes for 2025 are huge. And they just got bigger when you return Arroyo and Ward. Look at the things that they have done this year. We'll start with Brian Ward because Ward has been here for 2 years. It's no secret if you tune into the Locked On Sun Devils podcast on a regular basis that you know how high we hold Brian Ward in on this podcast. He is one of the darlings of this show. He has been absolutely phenomenal. Last year, he comes to Arizona State. His defense is averaging over 30 points per game last year, 31.8 points allowed per game last year. People are going to look at that. They're going to be like, that's pretty terrible. And I would say, yeah, you're absolutely right. But you saw a lot of progress from that Sun Devils defense a year ago. You saw a lot of fight in that team that did not have that fight in 2022 and was losing that edge in 2021. So last year, even with the pitiful stats you saw across the board, the defense was good. And that's something I led into the summer with, as I said, look, you can look at the numbers and you can say, oh, ASU, they gave up a lot of points last year. They gave up a lot of yards last year. But what you don't see in the box score is the amount of effort that the guys on defense gave. And it rolled into this year, the effort that they were giving, and it turned into more results. They went from 31.8 points allowed last year to 22.8 points. That's 2 possessions less scoring that you are allowing per game. I can't explain how massive that is. And it has shifted the Sun Devils from a 3-9 football team to a, 8-2 football team that controls its own destiny. That margin goes from number 107 in 2023 to number 53 in 2024. It's insane. And you are seeing a lot of guys on this defense that have shown development from year 1 to year 2 in his defense. Guys like Clayton Smith have looked better. CJ Fite has looked better. Keith Abney has looked better. Shamari Simmons has looked better. You're seeing guys that were brought in during the offseason that are having big years. Miles Rouser, Keyshawn Elliott, Javen Robinson, LT Welsh. There's a lot of guys they brought in that are having good success this year as well. There's a really good young core of guys that haven't been on the field this year because a lot of them are going to redshirt. And that's great news for ASU because it means that the future of this team is going to continue to be very well developed. Looking at offense, ASU was pitiful last year on offense. That would be putting it politely. ASU averaged 17.8 points last year on offense. First 3 games of the year were miserable under Bo Baldwin. Call it what it is. Kenny Dillingham took over play calling duties in the 4th game of the year against USC, and you saw ASU start to be more competitive. Before that, though, I mean, this offense was hard to watch. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of injuries. You played 4 different quarterbacks last year. 6 different players threw a pass for you. It was a injury-riddled season that absolutely contributed to the production that you had on the offensive side of the football. But you move on from Bo Baldwin. You bring in Marcus Arroyo. And I was excited about Marcus Arroyo, but I know that there was a lot of mixed feelings about it. I know that friend of the podcast, Spencer McLaughlin, was not really big on it, but he also covers Oregon and knows that Arroyo wasn't anything spectacular with the Ducks. There were some ASU fans that were kind of lukewarm on it. I was excited about it, if for no other reason than like he was just a definitive upgrade over what you had a year ago, which maybe that's not the best reason to be excited about something, but hey, you polish something off, made it look a little better. Sounds good. I'm in. Well, turns out to be a pretty big difference. 17.8 points per game last year. Number 121 in the country. This year, 30.8 points. 2 possessions better. Up to number 43. A 78 spot jump in your rankings because of everything that Arroyo was able to do for you. And it's been the perfect storm. You bring in Sam Leavitt, and Leavitt has been tremendous this year. He is playing some of the best football in the Big 12 this season. Over the last month, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. You have Jordyn Tyson, who's been balling out. You have Cam Scadaboo, who's been balling out. But so much of that success needs to be credited to the way that Marcus Arroyo has been able to call this offense this year. It's been terrific. It's been nothing less than terrific. Everything that they have been able to do from a play calling standpoint this year. And ASU has been quick to realize, there's a lot of good stuff that Coach Arroyo and Coach Ward, have done for ASU this year. The improvements from last year's team. The improvement that you've seen from Brian Ward from his first year to his second year, tremendous. What Marcus Arroyo inherited, and then to turn it into what it is, tremendous. These guys have been life-saving coordinators for ASU. You turned into a bottom feeder in a team that was predicted to finish last in the Big 12. They have a chance to finish first. They have a chance to finish first and go to the college football playoff. And a lot of that success needs to be directed towards coordinators. Now, this isn't just good news for this year. This is also good news for 2025 and beyond. We're going to explore that coming up in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Are you looking for tickets to today's game, ASU versus BYU? Well, you're going to find it really expensive, but if you want to find the best price tickets, and you need to use Game Time and use Game Time picks, they're going to make it really easy to find these tickets for ASU and for other games too. And it's not just sports. You can get it for concerts. You can get it for comedy events, theater events, and so much more. But Game Time picks, what they're going to do is they're going to filter out all the fluff and all the other stuff that tries to get your attention, and they're only going to show you deals on good seats. You're not going to have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets this way, and you can save more money this way. Speaking of saving money, you've got your all-in pricing feature. You're not going to see any surprise fees at checkout. You know exactly what you're paying for up front, where other ticketing companies will, kind of wait to show you how much you're going to be getting. You can also get a panoramic view of your seat, before you buy. That way you know what to expect when you arrive. The best part about Game Time is their lowest price guarantee. They're going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Also want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You can tackle the NFL action this year and get yourself a huge number to start the year with. Bet $5. My new customers, bet $5. If it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. I got great news for you. It doesn't have to be just football, at least not pros. You can bet college too. You can bet on your Arizona State Sun Devils today. And if they win, if they cover, whatever it might be, as long as it's a $5 bet for new customers, you're going to get $150 back in bonus bets. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can stay on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and you can check out the latest stats. You can check out a play-by-play and so much more. So when you get that hunch, you can feel confident that you know what you're placing that bet on. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in to make Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. All right. We got some more to talk about before we wrap up today's edition of the show. And don't worry, there's a chance we will be back tonight if things shake out really, really good for Arizona State in their game today. So make sure you turn on notifications to get that update in case we do have a show tonight, or if we have one tomorrow, or any day. Now's never been a better time. This is not just a big deal for this year. Extending Arroyo and extending, Ward is huge for 2025 and beyond. We'll start with what we teased at the top of the show. You are potentially returning, pending transfer portal, early departure, stuff like that. 35 of 44 players from your two deep. That's insane. Do you guys understand how insane that is? It's not just your starters that are back. It's the depth pieces too. It's guys that are going to rotate in. So yeah, you aren't just worried about like, oh, your top 2 linebackers. No, it could be your top 3, 4, 5 linebackers. I haven't looked at the list, but I can tell you ASU is in great shape this year. You are securing the odds of returning the majority of those guys by returning Coach Ward and Coach Arroyo. Typically, you have players that grow an attachment to a certain coach. And if they leave, they leave. Take a look at earlier in the year, back in March. Wide receivers coach Rashad Samples leaves ASU to go to Oregon. Uncoincidentally, not much later, star receiver Elijah Badger transfers out of Arizona State. That, I'm not saying it was a guarantee he wouldn't have left, but I feel pretty confident that he was not leaving before Coach Samples left. And of course, there were some other transfers that may have influenced that decision as well, but we'll never know. What we do know is that a lot changed when Rashad Samples left. And you saw that there was some recruiting stuff that went on behind the scenes. It's very implied that had a lot to do with Cooper Perry's decision to commit to Oregon instead of Arizona State. There's a lot of stuff that happens, not just when your head coach leaves, not just when your positional coach leaves, but when any coach that has an impact on you decides to leave the program, you may want to leave too, whether it's following them or just trying out a new atmosphere. Well, you're bringing both of them back. Not one of them, both of them. So these guys that have been working with these coaches for 1 year, or maybe guys that have been working for Brian Ward for 2 years, he's back. Marcus Arroyo is back. An offense that has been one of the best kept secrets in the country, they're only going to be just as good. A defense that has been sneaky good for the last 2 years and is really dominated this year, they're going to continue to be good. And there's a really good chance that they're going to return a lot of these guys. And that's such a massive deal to be able to retain this roster that has overexcelled any expectations. Again, to remind you guys, I said ASU was going 7-5 during the year, and I thought I was being optimistic. They are 8-2, and they're not done yet. They are going to win more games this year. I don't know how many more. I'm hoping it's going to be a lot. And I even said, to touch on this before we wrap this up, I said it extended your championship window. You can interpret that however you want. You can take that as a Big 12 championship. You can interpret that as a national championship, because ASU is way ahead of where we thought they were going to be. And now they're working on keeping the core of this roster in place. And your future for 2025 is even brighter than it was before. You also have to assume, and we'll wrap up with this, Kenny Dillingham's next. We already know that getting Dillingham extended is the biggest priority for ASU this offseason. There's going to be teams that are going to call for Kenny Dillingham, and his stock will never be higher. Turning around a program this quickly, yeah, you're going to see high-profile teams across the country, if they have positions open, that are going to call and request Dilly's services. So you need to lock him down. You need to make sure he does not leave Tempe. He says it's his dream job. I believe him. Now let's make sure that it is truly the dream spot. And there's nowhere else that he would rather be than Tempe, Arizona. But what a great start to retain his staff. You know that's got to feel good for Kenny Dillingham too. Seeing the staff that he has put together, staying together, having success together. This is going to impact the rest of the year. This is going to impact how 2025 looks. This is going to impact the potential to hold on to Kenny Dillingham, to hold on to your other very important positional coaches. And of course, it could impact recruiting as well. But this is big news, ladies and gentlemen. What do you guys think? Who are you more excited about? Marcus Arroyo or Brian Ward? Let me know in the comments. You can always hit me up on not YouTube. You can hit me up on Twitter as well at RichieBrants36. The podcast is there at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you get your shows, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. You'll get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate each and every single one of you, though, for making us your first listen of the day. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. I'll see you guys very, very soon to talk about ASU versus BYU. But until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.